Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Josh Ezekiel podcast. If you're a first-time parent, or if you've done this before but you still feel like you're figuring things out, then you're in the right place today. Having your first child is one of the biggest life changes you will ever experience. 1 minute you're preparing for their arrival, and then the next, you're responsible for this tiny human being who just completely relies on you for absolutely everything. Now, it's exciting, but it can also be extremely overwhelming. Now, today, I'm going to talk to you about something which a lot of parents come to me worrying about, is having that first child and taking it to nursery. The worries, the problem, the worries that you have, the comparisons that you do as parents, and the pressure that you need to feel like you have to get everything right, and why it's okay to let go of all that. Now, I will dive into how every child develops, but at their own pace. How nurture can shape their growth, and what it's like to send them off to nursery for the first time. If you've ever felt that little hint of guilt for dropping them off, or you're worried about whether they're thriving, you're definitely not alone. So grab yourself a coffee and just chill out and let's get on with it. Now, where I currently am at the moment is training as child and adolescent psychotherapist, but I spend most of my days working in a private nursery, which I understand for some parents can be quite expensive. I felt that coming from a background of not so much money, I wanted to experience working in an environment where, in a sense, not that money isn't an issue, but that they had kind of more money than what I had growing up, so that I could compare these children's lives. And what I've found is that even a lower socioeconomic status in comparison to a more private environment, the moms and dads still have this overwhelming reality of becoming a parent. Now, I know that from the moment that a child is born, like, everything in your life changes, down to the chemicals in your head, to how you perceive the world, to how you love a child. There is so much love there, but from what I've gathered working in this early years environment, is there also seems to be an extortionate amount of fear from these parents. And this has mainly caused, and what I feel is one of the biggest factors here, is that parents are always under the pressure of doing everything right. Like, they have to do the parent role right. And then you kind of get this self-doubt that always creeps in. And living in this day and age now, we've got kids on iPads and phones from a very early age when it comes to, I guess, geographical location, or having enough resources for your child to be mentally stimulated. And in some families that I've seen and worked with, that iPad goes straight to the kid from such an early age. That influence of social media is there, but it's also a social influence in which parents are looking at social media themselves and looking at these stories and reels in which these people are only going to post these kind of perfect parent moments. And in my point of view, in my perspective of what I've seen, like, this just doesn't come in line with what parents are struggling with in real life. And as a result of that, this exhaustion from parents of I need to be perfect comes into fruition and starts to tackle these parents. I've spoke to so many parents that have asked me for advice, and I've looked at their child, and I work with their children, and you're doing nothing wrong. Your kid is healthy, the attachment is beautiful, and I see the family come in and the bond is stunning. The energy in the family is just absolutely beautiful, and I'm trying to figure out what is it that kind of goes through the parent's mind for them to start doubting themselves. The first thing I see a lot of parents talk to me about is this comparison. I've seen child here that is exhibiting this behavior. My child is the same age. Why is my child not doing that? This whole comparison, it's not helpful. Seeing other babies hitting these milestones faster puts these parents in a predicament where they feel like they're behind, that their kids are not progressing as they should do it in accordance to kind of societal milestones, but then also feeling like they're behind as a parent, or that they're not doing good enough as a parent because their child hasn't hit these milestones. An example is you have a child with autism or an SEN child. That's a completely different story, and the way in which their path unfolds is very different, and we look at these children very differently. So when you take a normal neurotypical child and a parent saying to me, well, I feel that this child isn't reaching the goals, and it takes me a second to take the parent and go, you're doing so well, and you have to start celebrating the smaller things in life, because I feel that as parents, some of them do focus on these negative things, and I understand, because you want your child to have the best way of life. I've also found that a lot of parents feel that there is an immense pressure from family members. So you get grandma and granddad, which might start chirping up with, when you were a child, and this is instantly putting parents into this situation where they're like, well, if I was like that as a child, why is my child not like that now? You've got to take into consideration, first of all, the years that you were born, what was happening during their time, what was happening during your time, and what's happening to your, in your child's time. And by you instantly kind of going, oh, well, my grandparents said, or my mom said, it's putting parents into this situation where it's just instantly comparison. It's like, well, this is what your child should be doing. This is what they need to be doing. And it's a no. I've spoke to enough families, even though I'm so early on in this training, but my experience of working with children and families is so huge on such a broad scale of different cultures, of families, there's so much that I've taken into this conversation of, well, why do you feel that this is what your child should be doing? Because that's what your mum said? Because that's what your mum said about you acting like you were when you were a child. So why is your child not acting like that? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, because the times are just completely different. What I tell parents is every single child is unique in their own way. There are biological factors. What's mom like? What's dad like? There are environmental factors. There's also factors like, where is your child growing up? Demographically, where is your child growing up? Even the smallest things like the area that they live in, the friends that they have, the nursery that they attend, even down to the activities that the child is doing at nursery, which I will get into a new episode. If not, that is a whole different season of podcasts. Like, I could go in and speak about how kids want to excel in art and they're very creative, and having that child that wants to come into nursery and constantly be around this creative material, whether it be chalk or pens or paper, in comparison to another child that might want to just read all the time. And these kids that I work with, we're speaking with the age between nearly 1 to 2 years old. So by kids having a preference like that, you can understand how they might develop into something completely different, but you don't know sometimes as parents, because these kids who are at nursery 4 or 5 times a day, it's hard for you to see. And again, I need to do another episode on how you need to be able to kind of effectively communicate with, key workers in nurseries in order to understand fully what your child is doing and how best to make them excel in their own decisions at nursery. So you've got to realize that you need to avoid this guilt cycle, because why? Comparison fuels anxiety rather than helping. And that's a big thing. And I know it's going to be very hard to digest that and to understand that. But from somebody that looks and works on an outside looking into these families, I've seen these questions and I've seen these behaviors from parents from a range of backgrounds, from a range of financial support, money, area, demographic. I've seen it, but the questions always seem to be the same. So please understand that these comparisons will make you anxious, regardless of how much money you've got, regardless if you've got a 2-bedroom or a 4-bedroom. Moms and dads seem to just always feel the same way. I want to move on to this whole nature versus nurture debate, especially in early childhood. So we're speaking nursery age, I'm speaking 3 to 4 months old in a baby room, all the way up to 4 years of age, getting ready and getting prepared to go into reception in the UK. Now, yes, genetics do play a role, which I've discussed earlier with mom and dad, but so does the environment. And your child's personality and development will be shaped by both. So where the child grows up, what nursery they're in, the friends that they're with, these are all factors of how your child develops their personality. Working in a private nursery, I have seen a range of personalities, and some of these kids are 14, 15 months old, and I can just sit there and go, oh, art type, you're a creative type, you read, this is what I believe you're going to kind of grow up to be. And as a nursery educator, this is what I'm going to support that child in. If that child wants to come in and instantly straight over to the jigsaws, because I know that that's where they're going to excel at, then that's where they're excelling at. But there might be another child that comes in and wants to just sit and read. When you're comparing yourself to these milestones, like I've said before, and thinking, well, my child isn't hitting this, and this, well, then I can say to you, well, the child that's reading the jigsaws might not be so in love with reading, and vice versa. But does that mean that the child that's reading the books isn't as developed as the child that's doing the jigsaws or the child that's doing the reading? It's just that they're on different paths. For some reason, as I've seen with many parents, that comparison seems to really take a toll on them. And it's like, well, they're not hitting it. And I'm like, yes, they are. You know, let's just take a breather. Let them develop. So even if there's brother and sister in a house, 1-2 years apart, 2 siblings can be raised in the exact same home and can be completely different in behavior, in preferences, in activities, at nursery, in a range of things. I guess this is where I say, well, there's parents with one child that might have an outlook on how their child develops in comparison to a parent with 2 children who will go, I had that first child and then the second one came along and it was completely different. And there are so many studies out there that have compared the first child, the second child, the third child. The second child might be the more free-willing one. The third child is the one that looks after them all. And there's all these kind of journals and publications out there, which I think, again, I will dive into a bit more at a later date. But you've got to realize that there are households out there that have got brothers and sisters. In fact, I work with a brother and a sister, actually. One's 1, one's 3, and I've worked with both of them, completely different. I have the brother who is this very kind of calm, but he's very creative, and he loves to tell his stories, and he loves to sit down, and when I ask him what stories or once upon a time, finish this off for me, and he will go in and dive into this beautiful story of whales and dragons and foxes and calling the doctor. And then I see the sister, and she's very kind of conservative. She's very within herself. She's very, I don't know what I'm trying to say. She's very conserved. Conserved? Is it conserved? You know what I'm saying. She's very kind of neutral. She's very calm, and she's very within herself. And I think, well, these kids grow up in the same household, yet they are completely different, which just proves the point that you can have 2 kids that are raised up exactly the same, but just come out completely different. I usually tell parents that you need to focus more on responsive parenting. So what I mean by that is turning and tuning into each child's needs rather than following these expectations set out by the early years framework, set out by the primary schools and the secondary schools, because everybody has to go through that. There's kids out there that hate school. And what I mean by tuning into that child's needs is figuring out where they want to go. What can I do as a parent with this child to enable them to flourish? Okay, my 1-year-old only has a vocab of 10 words in comparison to another 1-year-old in the class that might have a vocab of 25 words. Does that mean I need to worry? No, not in a nursery setting, because in nurseries we have key workers and we have managers, and if we worry as early years practitioners as to whether or not the child is developing, we will speak to the parent at a point where it's not like it's jeopardizing their entire life. It's like, oh, well, is there anything we can do? Is there anything at home? There's so many things that early years practitioners do, because we're working with them all the time, to know how to just focus on that child, even if it means spending a bit more time with them. So there's definitely ways and means of doing things. And when you're at home, just focus on their needs. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're focused on. Ask what they're doing at the nursery, and kind of attune yourself into that to help them to excel in what they want to do. When it comes to starting nursery, I've recently met with a couple of moms at the nursery who have dropped off their kids. They've done a week of kind of testing out the room. She dropped a kid off today, and she was so, I could feel her energy. She was so upset, but she knew that that's what happens. Parents, especially first-time parents, when you have that child and you're dropping it off at nursery, that's your life. And I understand that, oh my God, like, why is my kid, he's there, and what do I do when I'm going to take him away, and what, oh, is it going to be okay, is he not going to be okay? And it's this emotional roller coaster. You're excited, you've got nervous, and you're even feeling guilty, I guess, in a sense. But these parents think, will they be okay without me? Are they going to be happy? And these parents have huge fears about a nursery, which, after seeing quite a few moms all dropping off that first kid, there are so many common fears that I see day to day, which is things like separation anxiety, not just for the mom, but the kid, in a sense of, where's that attachment? Is my attachment going to go from healthy to unhealthy? Is my child going to cry? These are all processes of enabling that child to grow independent. And if you are worried about this separation anxiety, if you're paying for a nursery, or even if you're having them 15 hours free, it's their jobs as early years practitioners to be in contact with you as parents if you have any issues. And if you worry, email them, speak to them. It costs nothing, and that's what they're here for. Another question, or another cognitive topic I get, is moms worrying that kids aren't going to make friends, or they're going to struggle socially. Now, if you're dropping a kid off who's 3-4 months old, putting them into nursery, I guarantee you that they will make a friend. They will. I've been in so many rooms from 3 months to 1 year to 2 to 3 to 4. Every kid's different. And what I find is, when it comes to making friends, that's something I would be more worried about in primary school, when kids have that personality. When it comes to the nursery, kids are still learning their rights, their wrongs, their independence, their internal world. If you do get worried about this, again, it's nothing to just email them. I guess another common fear is when, are they going to eat okay? I've told this person and their key worker that they need to nap from 10 till 11 and then from 2 till 3. And are they going to be comforted when they're upset? Are they going to be there? These people, we are trained to do that. And I'm not in this job to not comfort kids. If a child's crying, my instinct is to turn to a child, pick them up and comfort them, regardless how much they don't cry or what's up the little nick. As they develop through nursery, then yes, independence and there's different ways for them to kind of build that. But as nursery practitioners, it's very in tune with each other in order for your child to develop. Right, so I could literally go on and on and on and on about kids' moms, but I just felt that today, given how many conversations that I've had with parents recently, that I just wanted to do the episode today because I feel like I needed to let other moms know that you're not alone, or dads, you're not alone, regardless of money, financial status, background, where you're from, demographics, 1-bedroom flat, 2-bedroom flat, 40-bedroom mansion. Every parent struggles. Your child's journey is their own journey. It's their journey. It is not a race. It's not a race on, is my child the best? And I guess this is coming from a Western culture perspective. It's not a race, man. If there's anything wrong with these children, as an early years practitioner, I would say this to a parent, but things like you could move nursery, there are so many things, but we're also aware of that. You need to celebrate the small wins rather than focusing on what they haven't done yet. And I feel that a lot of parents do focus on the big daddy problems, their big daddy issues. My child isn't doing this in comparison to my sister's child that is, and that whole sibling rivalry kind of comes into play, and that's toxic. Stop that. But you've got to stop that. You've got to just go with the flow and go with that. You also need to start reflecting on your own experiences. Are you based on your child's needs or external pressures? Again, is it family? Is it sisters? Is it mothers? Is it brothers? Just reflect and think, what's the one thing that I can let go of today to make parenting feel lighter? Self-work, self-love. Kids doing this, not entirely sure. Get rid of it. Write it down. Do a journal. I'm going to stop there because I am going to go on and on and on and on. But with all of the information and all of the questions and conversations that I have with these parents, I will stop popping these into podcast episodes. I'm going to try and interview some early years practitioners from different rooms so that I can give you a better overview. If this or any information in this episode has resonated with you, please do share it with another parent who might need it or want it, or just to listen. And you've got to understand you're not alone, and I feel for all of you parents. You are the best things ever. The mums, you're just a legend for having a little baby growing inside of you, and respect. But in the meantime, see you all. I'll be on next week, and look after yourselves, but also just live your life. Let your kid live their life. Let everyone just live their life, and you'll always have support and help whenever you need it. I'm Josh Ezekiel. This is the Josh Ezekiel podcast. Please rate, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a 5-star review. Do what you want to do, and I will see you soon. Thank you for listening.